Hello, my name is Kim Hartman, and this is Chapter 2 of our Introduction to Excel 2016 class. And this starts on page 17 of the book. It is Chapter 2, Basic Worksheet Skills. So with Chapter 1, we learned the basic skills necessary to open your workbooks and use the ribbon and just kind of move around, just very basic skills. And we're going to learn more about using and customizing worksheets to maximize your workflow product in this chapter. So we will be adding new worksheets to the workbook, new tabs, and renaming them and changing their tab color. Using Zoom some more, the Zoom function, to increase or decrease the size of the window. And we're going to select cells, including rows, columns, and non-adjacent cells, and we're going to format some column headers. So starting on page 18, adding, naming, and assigning colors to worksheets. So when you first open Excel, you have usually one default worksheet. Some older versions have 2 or 3. And your worksheets are displayed in tabs along the bottom. I've already renamed this one to practice exercises, but the default name is sheet 1 and sheet 2 and so on. You can add as many additional worksheets as you like by clicking on this plus sign on the bottom. So do you see it has practice exercises down the bottom? And then immediately to the right of that, you can add more, it's the plus sign. So I click on that, and then there's sheet 2. And I already named sheet 1 practice, and so I can change the tab color too. So when I right click practice exercises, it does take me back to that tab, and I can change the tab color to kind of help them stand out a little bit more. You can't see it as much here, but when I click on sheet 2, you can really see it. And so now I am going to call sheet 2 cost of labor. You can kind of see on the bottom illustration on page 18. I double click on that, it becomes highlighted, so I don't have to click anywhere else. I can just type cost of labor. Then I can right click on that. Let's just click over here. Right click and change the tab color. Let's change that to orange. And then I will make a third tab. There's my sheet 3, my tab 3. Double click, and I'll make 2 here. Again, just click up here or hit enter to let it know that I'm done. And then I right click and change that tab color too. So we will get to the rest of these tabs as the class goes on. I'm just setting them up now. So starting on page 19, you can also duplicate a worksheet. So if you like the layout of something, and maybe you have a spreadsheet showing your monthly budget for 1 month, and you really like the layout and you don't want to reinvent the wheel every time, you can just duplicate it and it will keep the formatting and everything. So for that, I'm going to right click on the practice tab. And you see this option right here comes up, move or copy. So once I click on that, it's going to say to book. So you can actually, if you have more than one spreadsheet on here, you can move it into another spreadsheet, a new book, a new file. But I'm just going to keep it simple. And then I'm telling it I want it to be between the practice exercises and the cost of labor. So I'm going to click on cost of labor. So that way it goes, it's before cost of labor. And then I check off create a copy and hit OK. So now you can see there's practice exercises part 2, and it turned up between practice exercises and cost of labor. And again, you can zoom in or out of a worksheet. Right above this clock right here, on the bottom right corner, is the zoom. See, mine right now is at 110. So you can zoom in if that makes it easier for you. You can zoom out to see more of the spreadsheet. Or there's also the zoom command in the view tab, which I don't use as often. So you can kind of see here it's at 100%. it restores it to 100% because I had it a little bit higher than 100%. But then it just kind of gives you, magnification here. And if you know exactly what percentage you like it at, that's handy. I typically like to use the sliding thing. So on page 21, we're going to quickly go over selecting rows, cells, columns, and ranges. So knowing how to select ranges of cells is very important. Once you have selected cells, you can do whatever you want. You can delete the data, copy and paste, change the color of the cell and things like that, but you have to tell it what cell you want to do it to first. So you have to highlight it first. You can select a single cell, so like this, groups of adjacent cells that are touching each other, non-adjacent cells that are not touching. You can highlight whole rows by clicking right on the row header. So I have all of row 2. I can highlight all of column G, or I can highlight the entire worksheet. Selected cells are shaded and bordered by a green box. You can see this green border here. So let's start by selecting a range of adjacent cells on the practice worksheet. So I'm going to click on cell A1, and there are a few different ways of doing this. I can hold down the Shift key on my keyboard and then go to D4, and that's all it highlights. So I click on the top left, and then I find where I want the bottom right to be, hold down Shift and click on it. So that's one way of doing it. Or you can just click and hold down your mouse button, so that would be a left click, and drag. That's the most common method, I think. And then if you want to deselect it, you can just click again and it unselects it. Now, if you need to highlight cells that are not touching, you do that with the Control key on your keyboard, which is in the lower left. So I hold down Control, and I just click wherever I want to highlight. You can kind of see here while always holding down Control. If I were to let go of Control and then click again, it gets rid of all of that. So make sure you keep holding down Control until you're done clicking on what you want to click on. Now on to page 22, sometimes you will want to select several columns or rows. And each column has the header, which A, B, C, etc. And each row has the header, which is the 1, 2, and 3, and so on. And that's at the left side. So again, you can click on, I'm going to click on row 1, and then I drag down to row 4. And that highlights all of it all the way out to the end of the spreadsheet. And it works the same way. I'm going to click over here to deselect it. There's column B, C, and D, so it works with rows and columns. They both function the same way. So I'm going to click to deselect. Now, going on to page 23 to select one row and one column at the same time. I would click the header for row 1 and once again hold down Control because it allows me to highlight more than one thing at a time. And then I click on the header for column A. So there's the row and the column. But sometimes you want to highlight the whole thing. Maybe you just want to delete all of your data and start over. So you can see next to the A, to the left of the A, there is this triangle. And that highlights the whole thing. And I just click anywhere to deselect. Or from the keyboard, I can hold down the Control key and then press the letter A. It does the same thing. So now I'm going to move on to my cost of labor tab, and I'm going to start the cost of labor spreadsheet. I'm going to type Monday into A1. but I want all of the days of the week. So this is a really nice trick for this, and this is not on page 23, but I think it's important to teach ahead of time. So now that I have Monday, I put my cursor in the lower right corner there, and it becomes a black cross. And make sure it is the black cross and not the white cross. Otherwise, it's not going to work properly. The white cross does something else entirely. So once you have the black cross, just keep highlighting. You can see now it says Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Let's see. And Sunday. And so that filled out the days of the week for me. Now, if I wanted the Mondays to repeat, you can see there's this little window that shows up once I'm done autofilling, is what the black cross is called. Hit the down arrow. Copy cells means it goes Monday all the way across. Fill series means it makes it into a series like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. If I were to fill the formatting, if I had it shaded a certain way or something, that would transfer that over. And then you can also fill days or just fill the weekdays. So you can just do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then it would repeat. After Friday, it would go to Saturday, it would go back to Monday. So that's the quickest and most effective way of doing that. So now you can kind of see, I'm going to go to page 24. That Wednesday is a little hard to see because it is wider than the actual column. There are two main ways of doing that. So for both of them, I would take my cursor between the C and the D on top of those columns. And I can either physically drag it over so it fits, or I go between the C and the D and double click and it auto fits it. And that's the quickest way of doing it. And so sometimes if it's a little too big too, it'll auto fit, kind of squeeze Friday so it fits Friday, but we're gonna leave it that way. And you can also use an auto fit command to do the work for you. So it'll automatically adjust the height of rows or width of columns to accommodate the largest entry. So they'll all be the same width. So I'm going to click on column A and then drag to column G because that's our days of the week. Now I'm going to go back to home, and you can see in the cells command group here, it says cells down here. And then right above that we have format. And then we click on the down arrow. And there's column width. And then auto fit column width. So what that means is they're all going to be the same width according to what the widest column is. Or no, I'm sorry. That's going to be the width according to what the word inside it is. But if we were to make them all the same width, we can just do it like this and set it a certain way. So I'm just gonna, and that makes them very wide. But for an example, you can see how wide it is. But if you were to auto fit it, going back to that again, it auto fits it to the content. So you can see Friday's a little bit smaller because that's a shorter word. Or you can just go to default width. That's a standard column width. But for now, I'm just going to kind of stretch that out a little more so we can. There we go. And see that I had all these columns highlighted. And so when I adjusted the column width on one of them, they all kind of matched. So that's another way of making them equal. Or you can also left click and do the column width from there. That's what I'm saying. So now on page 26. So I did get ahead of myself and cover 25, but starting on page 26. Sometimes it is helpful to freeze a heading row at the top and or left the worksheet. So that's, you can do the heading row, or if there's headings that go down the left side, we can freeze those, and we will have spreadsheets in the future that do go down the left side. So on the top of page 26, the View tab, you can see there's an option to freeze panes. There's a little snowflake there. Does everyone see that? Okay. Freeze panes right here. And now that I bring down that option, it'll let you freeze the top row or the first column or freeze the panes based on the current selection. So just for this, I'm going to freeze the top row because that's where our headers are. And it is hard to see, but now it creates a dark line under that first row. And now you can see wherever I scroll, I'm scrolling down. It's hard to see because I don't have data, but that keeps it always present. Now I'm going to format the row and column headings. So I just have headings on the top row, but often the left column can also contain headings as well, which are labels for the data in the columns or rows underneath. We can add formatting to make it stand out, so that way you can see a little bit better in the columns. And we have already frozen the header row in place, so it's always visible when you're scrolling down. So I'm going to click on the row 1 header to select all of row 1. Now I'm going to click back on the Home tab. I'm going to go back to the cells command group, and I'm just following what the book says at this point. I'm going to click on Format, and then column width. And for that, I'm going to enter the book's example of 15. So that makes everything the same width. Now I'm going to center these all. So you can see I still have it highlighted. So while still having it highlighted, I center it. There's alignment. Right above it is center, and you can always hover your mouse over it. See, it says center your content. So I centered it. And then above this font section here, I'm going to click on the B for bold, which makes it bold. It's a little bit easier to see. Now here's the border button as well. Next to here's underline, and here's border. So there's bold, italic, underline, and border. It defaults to just a bottom border, but if you click on the arrow to the right of it, it gives you all sorts of different types of borders. But for now, we're just going to do the bottom border. Now on to page 27. I'm going to choose a fill for this first row so that way it stands out even more. So again, make sure you have that first row highlighted. Otherwise, it's not going to know what to fill, or it's going to fill the wrong thing. Next to our bottom border, there is a paint can with the fill color options. And now you have your standard colors. If you want more colors, you can click on that, and there's all sorts of different options here. Custom is if you have a very, very specific color code. A code for a color, maybe your workplace likes the colors to match their logo or something, so that way if you have the color code, you can make a custom color. And now I'm just going to stick with this kind of aqua-ish color. Okay, so now I've made some changes to my workbook. I'm going to make sure to save now, and the quickest way to do that, since I have the save function in my quick access toolbar, is to click on this floppy disk right here. Now you can see it kind of flipped, now it says saved, so that way you know you saved it. You can also turn the autosave on, which constantly keeps it going, so I can turn that on. And now it's wanting me to upload it to OneDrive. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it off. So I'm going to go down to the Practice 2 tab right now, the Practice Exercises 2 tab. And I'm going to merge multiple cells into one. I can merge them horizontally, like A1 to C1, or vertically, which is like A1 to A4. And adjacent cells, they must be adjacent for multiple rows and columns. So I'm just going to get rid of this data here. And I did that by pressing this triangle here and then just hitting the delete key, and that got rid of all of it. So now I'm going to go back. I'm back on cell A1, and like step 1 on the bottom of page 27, I'm going to type cell auto fill exercise. And of course, the cell is not large enough for all the content, although it did let it spill over into the next cell. If I were to have something in column B, it would cut it off. So now I'm going to select A1 to E1. And then I'm still in the Home tab, and then here's the Alignment section. There is Merge and Center, and it might look different for you. It might actually say Merge and Center. My screen is smaller, so it might kind of truncate it a little, and that is okay. So I'm going to click on Merge and Center. Here's the down arrow. So there's Merge and Center, merge across, merge cells, and unmerge them. So if you don't like the way it merged, it'll undo that. But for now, I'm just going to merge and center it. And so now it turns cells A1 to E1 into one big cell. You can see how this is one big cell, and it centers the text. So on page 28, deleting worksheets. Worksheets can be deleted from a workbook as well. Just like we added them, and copied them, we can delete them. But be careful, because of course, once you delete it, you cannot get it back. Even if you hit undo, anything like that, once it is gone, it is gone. So only delete if you are absolutely certain you no longer need the worksheet. So now I'm going to go down to my Practice Exercises 2 tab and right-click with my mouse and select Delete, which is this second option right here. And it gives you a warning, but I'm going to tell it I want to continue. And now it's gone. So now I'm going to go back to cost of labor, which is where it takes me actually. I'm going to insert some additional rows and columns. So maybe you're going along and you realize that you want to add some extra rows and columns to your formatting. This is the way to do it. And this is the bottom of page 28, inserting additional rows and columns. So I'm going to right click on column F, which is my Saturday header. And the options menu displays from there. I'm going to click on Insert, and that creates a blank column separating my weekdays from the weekend. Now to add a row to the worksheet, I'm going to right click on row 1. Hit Insert again, and that inserts a row above it. And now you can see this paintbrush comes up. And I told it to format same as above. You can see how I did that, or same as below, I'm sorry. And so that way it transferred that exact same color back up to the new column. So I didn't really have to do anything with that. So going over to page 29, note that because we added a row above a frozen pane, now both rows will remain at the top. So now that I am scrolling down, they both remain at the top. And then also, if you decide you don't want that extra row, you can always just hit undo, and there it goes. You can also insert columns in more than one place in one step. So again, this is page 29. I'm going to click on the header for column B and hold down Control and click on column G. And I'm still up here in the ribbon. That's what we call all those icons and things like that. So here's the cells group. It's kind of above column H, cells, and just click on insert, and inserted to the left of column C and to the left of column H. Now, if you want to just click undo or do Control Z, that'll undo it. But note that Excel will always insert columns on page 30, begin on page 30, to the left of and rows above whatever you have highlighted. But when you're inserting a single cell, you may choose to shift them to the right or down or up or insert an entire row or column. So I'm just going to right click on a single cell and see how I have my insert. It's like, okay, do you want these all to shift right or down, or do you want to put in an entire row or an entire column? So it does give you that option. And that for now is the end of chapter 2. And our next video will be chapter 3. Thank you very much.